Welcome back, painting friends. Today we're going to paint a cute little artist bouquet. Colors you're going to need are red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. I've got a dark pink, brown, gray, and white. And actually, I forgot to add black to the list, so make sure you put some black on there too. What brushes do I have? I always have my favorite 4 brushes at the studio, my 1-inch flat brush, my 10-6, and 1 round brush. Remember to have a cup of water and a rag for keeping those brushes clean. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start off by just painting my canvas with water. Okay, so I've got an 11 by 14 stretched canvas, canvas panel. Sorry, not stretched canvas. Canvas panel. I'm just going to cover it in water. That way, when I go to add my gray background, it just kind of smooths on like a watercolor. So I'm just going to kind of fill in this space with some gray paint. Let it look a little bit like watercolor. I am okay if I see some of those lines through it, even those brush marks, because remember, it's an artist bouquet we're making. And after you get it to where you like it and your lines are where you like them, let this dry. When we come back, we're going to add in that paintbrush and those flowers. With my background dry, I'm now going to make my paintbrush. I'm going to use my number 10 round brush, and I'm going to start off with a mixture of white and yellow paint. And I'm going to just kind of go right here towards the center and make a line that goes across my canvas. And then from there, I'm going to take those lines and go down. I need to extend that one out a little bit. And then I'm going to curve in. I can add just a little bit of brown to this. Help it look a little bit more like wood grain. And then in the center of that, I'm just going to take a straight line and go straight down. This is going to be my handle essentially. But to make my handle, I'm going to start at the edges and I'm going to just kind of bring them in together. And they're going to get a little bit skinnier. And then there's going to be almost like a little diamond down at the bottom. Again, adding a little bit of brown to that. And just kind of brushing those colors in. Now from there, I can go ahead and add a little bit of white to maybe some of like my corners, just to give it a little bit of a highlight on some of these edges. But I don't really want to over blend my brush in. I can even use the back of my paintbrush, a little bit of black paint right down here at the bottom for the little hole. Then I'm just going to wash that brush off, dry it off, and I need to create a gray that's not going to blend in too much of the background. So I'm actually going to use the gray that's on my palette and some white paint, and I'm just going to lighten that gray up a little bit so that it doesn't totally blend in with that gray background I made for my paintbrush. So on top of that, I'm just going to make a rectangle. Wipe that brush off, and then I'm going to take a little bit of gray paint. Just right here at the bottom, add that darker gray that's not mixed in, and I'll just kind of brush some of that off to the side. Since this is a fall bouquet, I'm going to stick with some fall-ish colors for my flowers, but you can always make this a spring bouquet and change the colors whatever you want. I'm going to start with my number 10 round brush. I'm just going to lay out a couple of flower location. So I'm going to take some orange paint and I'm going to put a nice big orange flower down here. So I'm just adding some circles so I kind of know where they're going. going to put one up here, and I'm going to put one over here. Laying out your flowers ahead of time is a good idea for a couple reasons. Number one, things look better in thirds. Use threes. Also, you want to make sure that this side's not heavier than that side. So now I'm going to take my brush. I'm going to lay out some yellow. I'm going to put 2 big sunflowers. Again, we're still odd numbers because I already had 3 on there. And then these open areas here, I'm going to put smaller flowers in them and some greenery. But let's go ahead and get started with some of these orange flowers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a mixture of like orange and red on my brush at the exact same time. And I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm just going to lay down colors in like a triangle pattern. And then I'm just kind of go around them and keep layering them. So orange and red, if your brush gets too messy, just kind of clean it off. And I can wipe that brush off a little bit, grab some yellow and stick some yellow in there also. I don't have to go all the way around with the yellow. I could just go over some of my lines that I made and add just a little bit of yellow to it. We'll also add some white. That'll come later. So that's how we're going to make that type of flower right there. Okay? Wash that brush off, dry that brush off. For my sunflowers, I'm actually going to leave the center here, and I'm going to take a little bit of brown and mostly yellow on my brush. So a little bit of brown, mostly yellow. And I'm going to start at the outside, and I'm just going to pull those lines in. That little bit of brown really helps it look more like a sunflower. So all I'm doing is with my number 10 round brush, I'm taking that brush, I'm setting it down, and I'm pulling it in. See that? Then I can wipe that brush off. I could fill that center with brown paint and maybe even use the back of my brush and add a couple of black dots in there. And that's how we're going to make this one. So let's jump in speed motion. I'm going to knock these 3 out, and then I will show you the interior. I'm sure that you noticed that I changed the center of the sunflowers. I just really wanted them to be a little more blended. So all I did was take a brush, a little bit of black, and I just kind of dabbed around to kind of smooth that out. So we're going to add a little bit of greenery before we add any more flowers. I'm going to take some green paint on my brush and some yellow paint. Again, I'm still using my number 10 round brush. And what's fun with this is that you can just kind of take your brush and you can just kind of make a couple of little spikes of green. You don't really have to go anywhere special with it. Just going to try to add some green so it looks more like a bouquet. Another thing you can do is you can really mix some good yellow in with your green to really lighten that green up. And then we could take a couple little lines that come out and we just stamp this green down. Again, all I'm doing is using the tip of my brush to make the stamp, and it's just a really pretty light green color. You put another one kind of coming right out here, one at the top, and then you just go right down the edges till you run out of room. Now this center here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grab some brown and green on my brush, more brown than green, and I'm just going to kind of add a little bit of darker greens in here so that if any of this kind of pops through behind our flowers, it looks like there's some greenery back here. So I'm just trying to go right here along these edges, not trying to hit the flowers too much, but just adding a little bit of dark green in there to fill in that space. Now my next set of flowers are going to be cone flowers, and they're going to be, I'm going to put a little black spot like right here. Okay. Then I am going to switch to my number 6 round brush, I'm going to grab that dark magenta color and purple. So dark magenta and purple. And I'm just going to start from right here, and I'm just going to kind of pull these lines down. See how that pops into a coneflower so nicely? I'll grab a little bit of white paint on a wiped off brush and just add a little bit of white onto those top of the coneflowers. And then I'm going to use the back of my brush with a little bit of yellow. Just add a couple of dots of yellow on there. So you can add coneflowers if you want, but let's see about another flower. How about we add just some itty bitty teeny tiny little blue flowers? And these are kind of space fillers. So if you've got like a weird space, you just drop a dot of white paint, and then you go in with a little bit of a light blue on your number 6 round brush. And you just make some little petals that kind of connect to that white. All right, I'm going to jump into, actually, I lied. I'm going to show you one more thing. I'm also going to add some little white dots, just like on the outside of my flowers. Maybe you can think of it as like a baby's breath kind of thing, and those can just go wherever you want them to go. I'm also going to add some highlights as this starts to dry to the flowers. And again, just the number 6 round brush, adding a little bit of that white paint on there, kind of letting it highlight some of those pictures or some of those flowers. So I'm going to jump in speed, and we're going to finish these out. All right, final touches time. Let's add some lowlights and some highlights. I'm going to grab a little bit of black paint on my number 6 round brush. And right here in the center of these flowers, I'm going to drop a nice black spot. I'm going to add a little bit of brown just to a couple little areas on my sunflowers. Not too many. I'm going to take a thin black line and go straight across here, as well as right across here. I'm going to add a ghost line. I like to call them ghost lines. They're lines that sometimes you can see and sometimes you can't. It's just going to go right around parts of my handle. I'm going to add a little bit of white onto the tippy tops of my greeneries. And then a little bit of white at the tippy top of my flowers. A small white highlight on my handle of my brush. And there we have it. I love this. When you're finished, make sure that you sign it in a color that's going to show up on your canvas. Take a picture of your art. I never get to see what you're making at home unless you take a picture of it and you post it on my Facebook page, Painting with a Purpose. Make sure that you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Painting with a Purpose, so you are kept up to date on all of my tutorials. And remember, as always, stay kind, stay creative, and stay safe. Have a great day, friends. Bye now.